And here now, what are you gonna do now? I'm gonna bid on here now. Who bid $500,000 bid?
Welcome to the Legacy of Agriculture. This program will explore the past, present, and future of agriculture. We'll look at the people, products, and events that have formed its history. And now, with today's guest, your host, Chris Bair.
Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. We'd like to welcome you to our show this morning. It's a beautiful day in South Dakota, and in this week's show, I have again invited a good friend and coworker, team member Andy Mrnak, to join me. We got some interesting markets out there, Andy. It's a little bit crazy, and so in the conversations that you and I have had for the last few days. I think it's very important that we talk about what's going on and what's crisis and what's not crisis and more importantly what we're going to be looking at long term rather than just short term. But first of all, thanks for joining me. How's everything
Yeah,
out west?
it's beautiful. We've we've had a couple calm days, a lot of windy days, a little bit of rain, not enough.
And,
Pretty easy to
and then
summarize our patterns out here. So, for the most part, Western, North and South Dakota have been really blessed with a lot of rain, and it doesn't take a lot out here to get the crops rolling. But uh, we just live in this little pocket here south of Bowman that it just keeps missing it. So everybody's always been part of that, where you can watch all the neighbors get the rain, and it doesn't seem like you're getting any. But they say every drought ends in a shower.
how's the grass out there?
So far, the grass is doing good. Couple of timely rains kind of got it snapped back. We were getting nervous about it. We had an open winter, so there really wasn't any moisture to carry over through the into the spring, and it seemed like we had a really good start. And then all of a sudden, the spigot got shut off right in about a 20-mile radius was about it. Everywhere else seems to be doing really, really good. And if you drive north and east throughout the rest of the North Dakota, it's as lush and beautiful as you could ever ask this country to be. It really is a sight to see.
Down here in the southern Pifers tier, we've had, I would venture to guess we probably had 13 to 15 inches of rain over the last 60 days. And the grass is absolutely beautiful. As a matter of fact, the other day I was driving down the road and we had about a 15-mile-an-hour breeze, and the pollen's coming off the grass that's seeding out. It almost looks like a dust storm coming out of the ditches. I've never seen that before, but the grasses here are absolutely wonderful. Well, I want to dive right in. There's a lot of chatter and there's a lot of things going on out there. Talk about all of the equipment auctions that are going on, machinery inventories, declining values. And I hate to say this, but we're seeing a lot of the sky is falling type attitude and mentality, which I don't like to see. As a professional in the business and as a leader in the business, as much as you do or Kevin does or anybody else, what are you seeing out there, Andy, from your perspective?
Yeah, it seems like there's this rush in the market right now to try to dump anything that you don't need on your yard or on your lot or in your in your dealership inventory or even in your tree rows. And I think we're far from crisis. Chris, you mentioned the word crisis earlier, and I think we're far from crisis. The difference is, and it really is, a lot of it is becoming a mentality standpoint, right? So in 2020, 2021, 2022, and even the initial portion of 2024, all through 23, the last 3.5 to 4 years have been, you know, almost resetting history to what our mentality should be as to how the equipment market should be handled. And we sat in an appreciating market for the last 3.5 years and watched as inflation basically changed the world. And it reset us back to what the mentality was back into the 80s. And the difference is now we've got strong markets, and less supply on the market, and it becomes a simple economic equation right now to figure out that we're actually starting to normalize and get back to the pre-COVID years of what the markets are actually starting to do, how depreciation is reacting to everything, and and that's really kind of what we're watching right now.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Yeah, last night you and I had quite a long phone conversation about the marketplace and what's going on with the machinery. And Sandhills Publishing does a phenomenal job with reporting equipment values. And in 2021, almost exactly 2 years at this time, inventories were at a historic low. The manufacturers just weren't getting machinery out of the factories. And as a result, it drove the used market to record highs. And now, as it almost seems like manufacturers have overcompensated for the shortfall from 2 years ago, we're seeing a free fall effect um, in the summer as we come into the summer of 2024, which is causing an equal and opposite reaction. And as we see market reports come out, most of the time inventory levels either up or down don't change more than 2%, but we're seeing a 10 and 15% swing that's creating a very erratic market right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I've seen the same Sandhills report, and obviously, depending on the type and kind and quality of the equipment, we're starting to see a depreciation in the equipment year over year, and that's the first time we've seen it in 4 years. A lot of it too comes down to, the consumer price index is starting to change a little bit too, so the national mentality of the consumer is starting to change as to whether or not we have cash. Do you still have cash available? If you do, what are you doing with it? Are you going to put it back into iron? Are you going to put it into land? The answer is we're seeing the consumer put their money in assets into land. The demand for land has not come off at all. uh, the values haven't been affected at all by interest rates. As a matter of fact, in the last year, we're still showing strengths in most regions throughout the Dakotas and into Minnesota and Montana. So the security in the investment in land is still providing um, a necessary portion of their portfolio to the consumer, especially the investor and obviously the rancher and operator that continues to try to get bigger and stronger. However, on the equipment side, just like you said, we're seeing some 15, 17, and 18 and 20% depreciations in value year over year. Semis being probably, uh, uh, I guess, heavy duty semis and heavy duty trucks, day cabs and sleepers are probably having the biggest impact right now.
Well, and part of that is driven obviously by inflation. It's input costs. It's the cost of putting a driver in a truck. There's lots of variables that are changing the transportation industry. But one thing that I'm noticing as we're seeing fleets that are now changing is that with the supply as high as it is, a lot of these trucks got ran 2 and 3 years longer than they normally would in a fleet. So you've got more trucks with more miles and needing more work done to them, which is further affecting the value of those trucks. Would you agree?
Oh, without a doubt. Yep, without a doubt.
So I wanted to. We're coming down to the last minute or so of this first segment. I want to read a paragraph out of this report that I got. The director of the North American Construction, Stephanie Oldenburg, said that trend has been a negative impact on values as the newest market report show. And she goes on to talk about track skid steer inventory increases have been especially steep, and inventory levels exceeding pre-pandemic levels, and auction values 10% lower than they were a year ago. So as we finish up this first segment, Andy, and we come into the next segment, I want to talk a little bit about trends in the transportation industry and then talk about the trends in the construction industry. And we're going to be back here in just a few minutes. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Pifer Auction and Realty, for making this show available. And we'll be right back with segment number two.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Piper's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeifers. Nobody does it better.
Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Bair with your host of the Legacy of Agriculture, Andy Mrnak, our lead auctioneer for Pfeiffer Auction and Realty, and our equipment manager for company wide, is joining me this morning. Thank you, Andy, for being on. I want to give you a shout out. You do all of the intros and the outros to all of our commercials as an auctioneer, and you do a wonderful job. We really appreciate you doing that. There
Yeah, I don't know where
are,
you got that recording at. I was wondering where the royalties are going to start coming in.
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I'm the guy that you need to ask that question to. Maybe the guy that you need to ask that question to will be listening to the show, and he'll call us, right?
Maybe.
Maybe, maybe not. So, anyways, I appreciate you for joining us. And we were talking a little bit about the transportation market and what's going on in the transportation market. That market, particularly in the heavy duty truck market, seems to be the market that's having the hardest time normalizing and finding its way as inventories. Manufacturers seem to be over manufacturing, and then they cut way back and they're over manufacture. And there's been a quite a yo-yo effect in the last 2 years in the truck industry. What are you seeing out in your part of the country?
Yeah, the the part about Western North Dakota where we get kind of immune to a lot of the big market swings just because there is a lack of inventory on the market, and there always seems to be bidders in demand. So we've had we haven't quite had the same massive up and down yo-yos that we've seen across the country with some other auction companies. As they put large sales together down by Omaha or Kansas City or even Dallas Fort Worth country, but the semi market, I believe, is starting to level out a little bit. There's going to be a lot more fleet trucks on the market, and there's second users sitting here ready and willing to make those purchases. But hitting home runs and watching these trucks fly off the shelf with 500,000 miles at $40,000 and $50,000 a crack isn't there right now, especially on the fleet side. But the market is starting to come together, I believe, and and like you and I've talked about here in the last couple of weeks, Chris. 15 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been promoting the idea of selling equipment or selling many commodities to the agricultural consumer in this portion of the year, in June, July, or early August. We really want to kind of focus on making sure that these products are available when our customers, when our farmer customers or rancher customers have cash available, and that usually is early in the spring and late into the fall. So the last few years of having auctions in mid June and having our customers have plenty of cash available to make their purchases, no matter what time of year it is, really changed the way we all looked at our marketing capabilities and our market timing. And as of right now, it looks to me like we're going to probably get back to the pre-COVID years of trying to structure a lot of these marketing timeframes to more closely relate to back how we used to do it, or maybe fit how our customers are trying to manage their finances throughout the entire year.
I agree 100%. There's an old theory out there that in the agricultural auction industry, there's 3 months you want to stay away from, and those are the three J months: June, July, and January, because traditionally speaking, uh, you go through spring planning. Uh, if you have an operating loan, typically your money as a producer, as an agriculturist, is going into putting a crop in the ground and not necessarily buying a tractor or buying a new combine. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to be pushing millions and millions of dollars of machinery out into the marketplace in June and July, trying to anticipate a market that really just needs to normalize and just kind of leave it alone. But I think that it's a mistake to be having big machinery auctions in June and July. Agreed.
Yeah, and the past few years out, that definitely wasn't the case. We had the ability to market this equipment any time of the year with multiple bidder interest. The demand was there, like you said, the supply was low. Econ 101 allowed us to have a sale just about any time of the year. I think right now, if the if the clients on the market, or if the potential sellers in the market are getting advice to sell now and sell fast, sell furious, sell any time, let's get it done here in the summertime, I think they're getting poor advice, and we're starting to see that. There's been a lot of dealership auctions here in the month of June. We're starting to see some of that market fall off, and I think if we you know, all kind of sit back, have a little patience, not get too strung out on this market and saying that that there's a crisis on our hands, because I don't believe there is. I think we're getting back to what you called a normalized a normalized market. It wasn't normal for the last, throughout history. Take the last 50 years. If you bought a tractor for 150,000, it wasn't normal to use it for 3 years and bring it back to the market and sell it for 200,000. That's just not, that's not what normal was. We have a depreciable asset that we use on our operations on a daily basis. And when we put on 1,000 hours or 1,500 hours or 2,000 hours, the value of that item should go down. Now, the fact is that we've kind of found where the inflation top is. I believe inflation's probably hit its peak. We're obviously coming into an election year, so the economy is staying as strong as as strong as politically allowed. And as we start getting into the fall of 2024, into 2025, and probably for the foreseeable future, we're going to start seeing this equipment get back into a depreciating market. That's not a bad thing, Chris. It's actually a great thing, because it allows you to sell your depreciable asset, turn around and purchase a newer model for that is depreciated over a couple of years as well. So the market itself is going to start leveling out to where we can all kind of bank on what it costs us per hour to run a piece of equipment, and what our input cost per acre is going to be.
Absolutely. There's an old saying out there is have an auction when the seller's ready to have an auction. And in this marketplace right now, Andy, I think that's terrible advice. As auctioneers and representatives of an auction company, I think it's very important that we give our customers good information and tell them, say, June, July are traditionally the poorest times of the year to have an auction. You compound that with a high volume of equipment coming into the marketplace, of course the market's going to react to it, and it's going to react to it in a very negative way. And we're anticipating in some cases 50 cents on the dollar or 60 cents on the dollar are some of the numbers that we're hearing over the next 60 days. And that is not healthy for the dealer. It is definitely not healthy for the auctioneer. And yes, it provides some buying opportunities for the end user, which is helpful, I believe. However, it's not the way to manage the market by just dumping tons and tons of equipment into the marketplace.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I know there's there's an interest rate factor that's playing a role on especially on the dealerships, because they're the ones sitting here with 3 and 4 and $500,000 items. And if you're, you know, knocking on the door at 6 or 7%, or maybe even a little stronger on your floor plan, the monthly expenses onto the dealers for the interest rates is getting pretty stiff. And I'd imagine that's probably where the decision making is coming from for the majority of the of those guys who are having their sales. But I believe, like you said, it's kind of flooding the market right now. We've seen a tremendous drop in value in the late model John Deere tractors, late model case tractors, specifically in the John Deere side, the 8Rs and 7Rs and 6R tractors, and mainly because I mean, I'd hate to even guess. I'd probably have to look at some statistics before I talk too strong about this, but I'd hate to guess how many have been on the market in the last 30 days, Chris.
And what's coming onto the market in the next 45 days is it's tremendous. There's a tremendous amount of machinery coming into the market. We're hearing of more and more dealer auctions almost on a daily basis, and it's just not healthy for anybody, from my opinion. But anyways, Andy, we're coming down to the end of our second segment. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Pifer Auction and Realty, and we'll be right back with segment 3.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Pifer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pifer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Folks, this is Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture, and joining me in segment 3 is Andy Mrnak from Pifer Auction Realty, the lead auctioneer. Andy, thanks for joining us. We're having some interesting conversations. Sometimes these conversations aren't real pleasant to talk about when we're talking about a market that's fluctuating and trying to find itself, but in the machinery world, that's exactly what's going on. And you know, we talked about timing of auctions, and in segment number 2, and in this segment, I want to talk a little bit about uh, what information is good information to give somebody who is considering having an auction, whether it's a retirement auction or whether it's a dealership or whether it's the client that just has one or two pieces that he wants to sell. In my opinion, Andy, when we sit down with that clientele or that client, that it's very important to manage expectations. It's very important to sit down with them and say, hey, you've got an inventory list here of 2, 3, 4, 5 million or 500,000, whatever that number is, and sit down and go over it very carefully based on inspection and give them good advice. As an auctioneer, how do you look at it?
Yeah, really, the expectations of the seller is probably one of our biggest challenges. We want to make sure that that our client is educated, that the market is that reflects the value of that equipment, that we achieve fair market value, and that's the ultimate goal. Achieve fair market value under a competitive market. And right now, again, we I want to get away from kind of all the negativity of what this market's been doing. Again, it's not a negative market. We're just kind of what you said, into a normalizing market, and it's getting to the point where we can start gauging value a lot better than we could have in the last couple of years. It seemed like every time we said it was going to bring 100,000, it bring 125. If it brought 200,000, our expectations earlier were 160, and Machinery Pete kept putting numbers out there after every one of our sales, saying another home run, another record. Every tractor being sold was breaking another record. I sold a 4955. It was the highest selling 4955 in 10 years, according to Machinery Pete's record breaking news. We're not seeing that anymore in the market. However, we still have an exciting time ahead of us. I think this fall is going to start bringing some good values. I think the farming economy right now is looking as strong as it can be. The livestock industry should have a tremendous year here this year, and we're looking forward to a tremendous fall. And so I think the sales that you see in our regional auction facilities in Bowman and Steele and Sioux Falls, those sales, as we start getting into September, October, November, and December, I believe are going to be as strong as we could ask for them to be as we close out 2024. The advice that we're working with our customers on right now is, trying to time the market, trying to make sure that your equipment is presented as well as it can be presented, making sure that the marketing efforts are uh, are being done, to the best of our ability as marketeers rather than auctioneers, and making sure that we can provide that buyer base for the quality of equipment that's hitting the market. Now, kind of go back in throughout history too, Chris. It doesn't really matter what the market's doing if you have a good quality item. And we see that in land, we see it in equipment. If you have a good, meticulously maintained piece of equipment versus one that's sat outside in the elements every day, there's always a market for quality items. There's always a market for quality land. And I think this fall is gonna start proving that point a little bit more. I think the operators that have a good maintenance program, and the operators, whether it's a construction equipment or a construction company or a farm and ranch operation, those who take care of their equipment are going to reap the benefits of lower depreciation.
Absolutely. And there's a term that I like to use with my clientele, and it's called the crockpot effect. And I go back to the old Sunday dinner deal is would you like a roast that got thrown in the oven at 375, 400 degrees and cooked in 20 minutes, or would you like one that mom put in the crock pot at 7 o'clock in the morning on low, and at 1 o'clock, by the time dinner time comes around, you've got a totally different product. Technology has offered us some wonderful advantages in the auction industry. However, taking a piece of an equipment and quickly putting it out on the market as fast as you can in a 30 or 40-day turnaround time, I do not think that's the solution. I think the solution to some of what we're seeing in the marketplace from a professional standpoint is a sitting down with the customer, or with, excuse me, with the clientele, and saying, you know what, sir, you've got 15 combines that you want to sell. You got 10 tractors that you want to sell. Your inventory list here is 200 or 2.5 million. Let's take it, set it out on the freeway. Let's slow the auction process down. Let's do a good job in our social media. Let's continue to use display advertising. Let's use some of our old methods of marketing combined with the new method of marketing, and allow that stuff to sit out there for a period of time so that people can conceptualize it and say, you know what? I need a 9X combine. I need a late model class 10 or a class 11 combine, and I'm willing to wait for that combine and buy it in August because I'm really not going to need it until September. And I think that that's a great way um, to slow the market down and to do a better job getting this stuff sold. But I do not think of having a quick turnaround or throwing a whole bunch of machinery up on a website and hoping that the buyers are going to come to it, and that they're just going to buy like they have the last 2 years. In watching, I watched an auction not too long ago where a dealer had dumped, or I don't want to use the word dumped. A dealer had put a bunch of planters on the auction, and the planters values were absolutely horrific. But I think that good advice of, you know what, hold those planners. Let's hold them till November or December when people are going to do a little bit of buying for tax purposes. Let's put them out there for 90 days and let people look at them. Let them sit in that crock pot and get warm. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of just hits on the points that we've been talking about here for the last few minutes. I think exposure to the market is definitely going to start reaping some benefits. I don't believe that the thousands of people that used to sit and browse every auction website and across the country are doing it every day like they were. Um, the demand is starting to soften a little bit, but again, I think we're going to get into the point where we're um, well, patience in the marketing efforts and making sure that the marketing is out there and that the buyers are being found. That's going to be the direction that we take, or the approach that we take as we start moving into the end of this year.
Absolutely. Folks, we're at the end of segment three. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Piper's Auction Realty and Land Management. Piper's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Folks, this is Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. Andy Mrnak is on for our fourth and final segment. Andy, it's been a great conversation, but there's some amazingly positive things that are going on out there in agriculture right now. Number one is the livestock market, and our producers, our cattlemen are doing very well in the livestock industry right now. Record breaking prices, which are wonderful. It's a little bit painful at the grocery store, but we need a healthy livestock industry, and it's very, very healthy and very positive. The next thing that's happening is, as you and I wear out pickups and are driving the countryside back and forth, the crops are looking as good as they ever have at any time. I think we're looking at a great harvest, and all of this machinery that is getting sold over the next 90 days as this market normalizes. The comforting thing is those tractors, those grain carts, those combines and headers are going to be out in the field, and they're going to be bringing in a record breaking crop for 2024. And to me, that's great news. That kind of lays the foundation to a good fall.
Yeah, without a doubt, and and like I said, it's getting to be kind of an exciting time of year, and we're always cautiously optimistic, especially in the agricultural industry. But as we start looking at, cattle inventories are still at an all time low, lowest they've been since 1954, and I think we're starting to see the benefits hit the operators or the producers in the livestock world, especially in the beef industry, as these markets really kind of carry them into the fall. Last year was a tremendous livestock year as well. And visiting with most ranchers, and I'm directly involved in that industry as much as anybody. We run a feedlot and a registered Hereford operation, a commercial cow herd as well, and visiting with other producers and other livestock producers across the countryside. Last year really wasn't the home run year that gave the buying power to the rancher, right? It didn't give all. What it did is it made up for the previous 10 years. That was really a you know I won't say a complete struggle, but there was certain challenges that hit the livestock industry for the previous 10 years. Last year, I believe, was that year that made up for it. This year could be the profitable year for the livestock industry.
Absolutely, and with good grass and lots of hay and lots of feed out there, that's going to be a contributing factor. A lot of people don't realize is that when corn is at $7 and $8, or beans are ten to $14, or $12 to $14, that's a little bit hard on the livestock industry because they're feeding those commodities. When those markets come down, the livestock industry definitely advantages from those. So there is a very very important balance there with feed and and commodities. So, but I think it's very positive, Andy. I think we've got a lot to look forward to this fall.
Absolutely. And the producers nationwide, whether it's in farming or livestock, the efficiencies that have happened over the last 4 or 5 or 6 years is really, starting to generate a lot of benefits for each of these operations, because we're really getting into that time frame where, my family, we've talked about it. The last 4 or 5 years was an expansion mode. Now it's an efficiency mode. We had the ability to expand the operation over the last 4 or 5 years. We've had the ability to grow our land base, to grow our lease land base, and now we want to take the land that we're currently managing and make it as efficient as possible. And really, that's what drives the commodity prices down. If we weren't as efficient and productive as we are, the commodity markets would always stay high. The problem is we're producing more grains and putting them on the market. We're carrying as many year over year as we have in history. And if you talk to the grain bin builders that we talk to throughout the upper Midwest, they're a year and a half out as far as when they can get a bin up on your operation. So on-farm grain storage is growing, and that's what's going to probably maintain the grain market, in a lower state. Probably not going to allow the corn and soybeans and wheat markets to rally anytime in the next few years, just because on-farm grain storage is so high. But just a lot of excitement right now in the agricultural industry, and we're looking forward to a productive fall for all of the producers across the country.
What are you anticipating on the real estate side for the fall of this year?
I'm not seeing any indicators right now that the land market is gonna start receding at all. I know the interest rate is there. There's definitely going to be pockets of the countryside where there's going to be some opportunities, some buying opportunity for guys. My recommendation to potential buyers, maybe you're not in the market, but be ready. There could be some opportunities coming up, but all in all, with the volatility of the stock market and the security that you see in the investment in land, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure for people to exit the stock market, and the best place for them to return their asset or return their investment is to put it back into agricultural land. Farmland has always been uh, a good investment, historically shown, to double in value every 20 years, and I think we're probably into that mode of mentality right now to get the investor back into the farmland market.
And from a balance sheet standpoint, land is always a great investment. you, you can build more combines, you can build more tractors, but you can't build more farmland. And so
Yeah.
we don't see those inventory swings. We just simply see changes in ownership, not in inventory swings, right? So and that really does help that the real estate marketplace is if you want to buy that quarter of land or that section or half section, and it hasn't been for sale for 50 years, you got one chance probably in a lifetime to buy a piece of land that might be adjoining you.
Yeah, and generally, generally speaking, you get one tract of land in a township sell every 10 to 15 years. So, like Jim said, we would always say it's harder to keep your neighbor on the other side of the hill, especially in flatland country, and here in North Dakota or South Dakota. But uh, the ability to buy land isn't always convenient. It's when the opportunity is there. So you're not trying to buy it when it's convenient for you as a buyer, when you have cash available and the interest rates are low and everything. It really comes down to when is it available. And if your neighbor is going to sell this year and you're not ready, it might be your only opportunity at that tract of land for another generation.
Let's talk about Piper auctions coming in 2024. What have we got from the end of June here through the beginning of 2025?
Yeah, on the equipment side, we've kind of wrapped up the majority of our retirement sales here for the spring season. We're kind of dabbling into a different market here into July, and this kind of goes back to what you and I talked about here in the first couple of segments. Is what markets do we want to promote in June and July and in August here? So July, we actually have a couple of classic car auctions that are going to be really fun for us to kind of reset and have a little fun in the market. In Bowman, North Dakota, here on July 27th is going to be a tremendous sale. We've got I think there's a 66 and a 67 and a 93 Mustang. We've got a 68 and an 81 Corvette. We've got a 72 Chevelle. We've got a 1928 Grand Page, a 1917 Model T. Got an old Hudson Hornet, Hudson Commander, I should say. It's going to be just a tremendous sale. There's about 25 or 30 cars, lots of automobilia. We're going to sell it right on Main Street during the biggest car show in Western North Dakota, and they're talking 250 cars and tractors, antique cars and tractors that going to line up Main Street in Bowman. We're getting pretty excited for that one. That's going to be fun. We've got another classic car auction coming up in Hawley, Minnesota, um, here as well. That one is going to be on July 16th, and then probably the marquee sale of the year, Chris, is going to be the Bricks Farm retirement auction in Breckenridge, Minnesota. One of the most premier farming operations in all of the Breckenridge Wahpeton area, and it's just hard to find a better farming operation. It's hard to find a line of equipment that's been better taken care of. Everything's been shedded. Everything's been well maintained. They've got a maintenance guy. They've got their own parts man right on the farm, and they make sure that everything is just dialed in every day that they go to work. There's a whole line of Cat Challenger tractors. We got 875, 765, a 95, and another 865 Challenger tractor. It'd be a nice line of yellow iron there as well. We've got a Case IH260 tractor, lots of good Case support equipment, farm equipment. We've got a Patriot sprayer, but then we've also got a 2021 9250 combine with tracks on it, and everything is modest in hours and extremely well taken care of. It's just one of those sales that as an auctioneer, you're just excited every day you wake up and get to go to work and get to work with a family like that.
Hey, unfortunately, Andy, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on the Legacy of Agriculture, and we'll see you on the road.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
In it here now, what are you gonna do now? I'm gonna been on here now, who bid $500,000 bid.
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Legacy of Agriculture with Chris Bair, sponsored by Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Call Pfeiffer's at 605-836-2277.